It's such and I always think of it too, like you actually made that buyer's purchasing process somewhat enjoyable as well, whereas on the selling side, it's usually always stressful. You know, it's a rarity that there's always some stress around getting the house ready, open homes, everything like that. On the buying side, if you do your job properly and you get them a great result, you've just, you've changed their lives for the better and you've got them exactly what they want, and they're always super appreciative. Yeah.
Welcome to the Buyers Agent Institute show. The purpose of the show is to bring awareness to buyers agents, to bring awareness around the career opportunities that the buyers agent sector is providing people, to bring awareness around the value that buyers agents provide to people who need help buying property. Our goal with the show is to strip back and dive into the remarkable journeys and stories of buyers agents who are paving the way forward in one of the fastest growing career sectors in real estate right now. Our guest today is Jack Corbett from Wollongong. He was a selling agent for 5 years. He wasn't selling for 5 years, but he was working on the sell side for 5 years. He now runs his own business called Corbett Property Buyers. He's specifically focusing right now with owner-occupiers. It's not to say he doesn't do investment, but it's very much geared towards owner-occupiers. And what happened during this time as a selling agent, he noticed that buyers were heavily misrepresented. And he was, I guess, moving more towards buyers and starting to understand their needs and wants, which made him shift to work on the buy side. Today, I'd like to introduce Jack. Welcome, Jack.
Mate, thanks for having me. Thank you.
You're welcome. The last episode I did was with another former selling agent like yourself.
Yep.
Wasn't working in the space for 5 years, but for 3.5 years. And I'm surprised myself, and I'd love to hear from you, why aren't more selling agents jumping ship?
Mate, I think it might be pride. I think there's always maybe, especially where I was working, maybe a bit of a stigma around buyers agents, and I don't think even the agents knew what their role was. But I think that will change as we head into the future, for sure.
Yeah, because there's so many transferable skills.
Definitely, yeah.
And I guess it's such a natural progression.
Exactly, yeah, exactly right. Like dealing with, especially for me as a junior agent, all I did was deal with buyers every day. So that was my role. So the transition from an agent to a buyer's agent has been super easy for me. It's been really good.
It's seamless. And so what was the draw card for you to actually make the move?
Mate, I think just seeing the fact that our area was just so saturated with agents and probably seeing an opportunity, and that's probably for anyone else who's thinking about becoming a buyer's agent, who's a sales agent now. There's just so many agents, and where I couldn't name any buyer's agents that, one, we were dealing with, or two, who actually worked in the area.
Yeah. Is Wollongong coastal?
It is.
It's coastal, yeah, because I know it's beach, but I wasn't sure if it was coastal. And so I'm assuming you're seeing a lot of buyers coming from outside of Wollongong, right?
At least probably 90%. And that's sort of where the light bulb moment for me was, because I was like, all of these people heading down south don't know the area, don't know the agents, don't know what things are worth. And that was probably just what tipped me over the edge and went, I have to do this.
Mate, you joined at the most perfect time.
COVID has been a blessing.
Yeah, literally, because, yeah, you're right, that these clients or these buyers who turn into your clients, they're uneducated with product knowledge. They have probably no idea around where to buy, and they've got no real estate agent relation. They're basically at the drawing board stage.
They're guessing. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and it's just been, most of my clientele are people from Sydney moving south. That is pretty much all I'm dealing with at the moment.
That's probably why it's so focused on owner-occupiers, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And what about investment? Are people, I would think that, would it be smart to invest in Wollongong now?
Wollongong is, probably Sydney's little cousin at the moment, and the price growth that we're seeing is because of that Sydney money flowing down south. So in terms of investment, you're getting really good, long-term tenants, people who are sort of buying or renting before they buy in the area. So we're actually starting to see prices increase probably because of that as well.
I remember when we first spoke, I know we had a few chats before you decided to, commit to becoming a buyer's agent. Did you expect things to move? Because I mean, I do tell people things can move quick because they can. Like, did you expect because your business has grown very quickly? Did you expect it to move this quick?
Not at all. No. Like I thought, look, let's. I actually set a goal and I was like, if we can deal with sort of 3 clients before the end of the year, that'll get me out of trouble and I'll be happy. And I thought I'd have this big mission of educating and trying to just find clients. But man, it's been a whirlwind. It's been really good, actually.
How is it working with? Obviously, you're used to working with buyers, like as you buyer managing, I guess. But how is it now, like fully representing independently, exclusively the buyer?
Mate, it's awesome. Like it is being on both sides now. Like when you sell a home, usually it's this big stressful time for vendors, and once it's over, usually they can't wait to get rid of you. With buyers, they are so appreciative, especially the ones that are coming down south. Like when you find them a home, get it for a great price, it's exactly what they want, and they didn't miss out on it. It's such a, like they're just so happy that you found them the perfect property.
Have you bought anything for one of your clients through an agent you used to work with?
Majority, yeah. So I guess the biggest thing with anyone who uses me is I've got some really good relationships with the previous agents I used to work with, and that's only a win for the buyer, like almost every time as well. So it's actually it's been actually a lot of fun for me.
Clients must really, I guess, they must see a lot of value in that. Like if I was sitting in front of you looking to engage you, and you were on the sell side, and you've got these really strong relationships, which is obviously going to help you with negotiation, access to stock, blah, blah, blah. Like that would be very compelling for a client to then come on board with you.
For sure. Yeah, it's probably one of my biggest strong points, and there is a few buyers agents down in Wollongong, but I think that's my point of difference. Like nobody has the relationships I do down there, which is just a win, I guess, for the buyer.
What about off markets? Like at the moment, I know there's dry stock in a lot of parts of Australia. Are you struggling with stock?
We are struggling to find off-market properties because agents are really pushing them to market because the conditions are really good.
Yeah.
We've actually had some private sales, so like old appraisals of mine back when I was actually as a sales agent. So that's been a little bit of a win for some of our buyers as well, trying to get them through it's just old stock of mine even. So yeah, it's been interesting.
And I guess what about like managing your buyers? Like for example, they've decided they want to move down south from the city or wherever they're coming from, and then there's just no stock. Like how, are you finding that's a challenge?
Huge challenge for us at the moment. Yeah, definitely. And we've actually sort of even had to sort of pivot in terms of what we're looking for as well, just to make it a bit more achievable if there's time frames around when they actually need to move in by.
Okay.
But I think everyone's had that same problem at the moment, isn't it? Just not enough stock.
With your clients that are coming on board, are you helping them with like identifying schools? Because obviously it's such an unfamiliar area. Do you feel like you're going into a lot of that stuff?
That's half my job, especially for someone coming out of area. It's really about the first stage of what I actually do is really about suburb selection and just matching the lifestyle they want with where they actually want to end up as well. So that's a huge part of my job because I've lived in nearly every suburb I service, which is another win, I guess, for my buyers. And we can just sort of match them up, with the lifestyle they want and put them in really that perfect home.
Very compelling for someone to sit in front of you, right? Like as to, especially being out of area as to why they would engage you. What about negotiation in this market right now? Like, do you feel like there's actually still good deals to be done?
No, no. Where we live at the moment, stock is so tight. It's a rapidly rising market because we're governed by, I guess, the escarpment around our suburbs. So we're almost like a miniature version of Sydney, and there's so much outside interest coming in at the moment. There is a few, like you can pick up a few cheapies further south, but in the northern suburbs of Wollongong, I mean, it is pretty tough. It's really just trying to get the property for the owners at the best price, at a reasonable price, I think, at the moment, as opposed to getting something for a good deal because there is just so much interest.
Do you think vendors, and this could be a national thing, aren't selling now because they're concerned about buying back in?
Correct. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think vendors are probably holding off until next year at the moment. I really think that's a big thing, and the reason why is I think they're worried about where they're going to end up. And once again, too, being priced out of the market if they're out of the market for too long.
What about if you were I'm just thinking out loud here, right? Like, what happens if you were to position yourself with some real estate agents who were trying to, let's say, list properties, but vendors were like, hey, no, we can't buy back in, so we're not going to sell. But if you were to team up with them to, I guess, for them to communicate to their vendors that you would make it a seamless transition for them then to buy.
For sure, yeah. I'm chatting with agents pretty much every day, and I actually say to them, use me. Use me if it means, you know, you've got a good relationship with me and we've got the perfect buyer for it. If that gets you the listing, you know, drop my name, you know, say you're working with buyers agents, and that can be a win for our buyers as well, because we want to get through the property without competition. So if a vendor's, you know, on the fence about selling either this year or next year, but they're happy to do something quietly, that's something we always push with the agents.
Yeah, nice. Could you see yourself going back and working for someone ever again?
No. No. The freedom, you know, working from home, like COVID is probably, it's made apparent some really important things to me. And being my own boss and having the freedom to work my own hours I don't think I could go back to it anymore, no.
You know, sometimes I think with what I do and how I communicate around flexibility and freedom and quitting the 9 to 5, all that stuff, some people probably think, oh, that's bloody corny shit. But until you actually experience it, right, which you have now,
oh yeah,
it's a game changer, isn't it?
It is insane. Like I have never worked just as hard. I've never worked harder, but I've never had something so rewarding as well. So man, it's amazing. It really is.
And it's not like, as you said, like we work hard, but we do have the freedom. Like if you want to go for a run at 11 o'clock, you don't have to speak to your boss, or you can just go, let's do it.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's really the perfect job. It's amazing.
And as you said, the remuneration, like we get rewarded very well.
You do for the hours you put in, and that's probably the greatest thing about what we do. You know, it really is how much effort you put into it. You can do as little or as much as you want, but if you do go the extra mile, you do get rewarded for it, for sure.
Do you think that, what about the market in Wollongong for local buyers? Like, is that starting to have a domino effect of using BAs, or?
I think people are looking for a solution. Yeah, and once they've missed out on a couple of properties, I think they're looking for, you know, a competitive edge. And we actually are starting to see a lot of people, you know, contact me directly, just who are actually local, which I thought would never happen. I thought it was always going to be buyers from Sydney, people from out of area, investors. But some of the locals are starting to catch on too, which is good.
Yeah, and it does have that domino effect, like where it's people like, you know, why would I use Jack or another buyer's agent when I'm living in Wollongong to buy in Wollongong?
That's right.
But then as soon as it happens a few times, I feel like their mates are like, so-and-so you, and then it starts to flow. It's
funny, isn't it? Like I think no one thinks they need a buyer's agent until they use one. They'll always come back, right? Is that? It always seems to be the way.
Yeah. And what's your, like? I mean, obviously you're new in the buyer's agent space, but do you see Wollongong changing a lot in terms of buyer's agents?
Definitely, yeah. I think it's only a matter of time, because it's been so successful in Sydney. As you know, more Sydney siders move down south. I think like the biggest thing for me the other day was, there was a buyer from Sydney that actually used a Sydney's buyer's agent to purchase down in Wollongong. And instantly that to me said, okay, there's a demand for this. You know, if someone's willing to use someone out of area who doesn't quite know the area, there must be a demand for this service. That
definitely ticks the box for that, because that's a bit of a red flag to be using someone out of area.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
And do you feel like agents are obviously now becoming a bit more receptive, or?
That has taken a while. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of education around, you know, the benefits, I think, of dealing with a buyer's agent. But once you do a deal with them, I think after that they get it. And then they really see the benefits of dealing with someone who's just, you know, they don't have to worry about people pulling out. They don't have to worry about explaining things 10 times over. It's a much smoother transaction. And that's why I see a big future for what we do. Because when trust is high, you know, it's just, business is so much better.
You said something interesting earlier around when you're selling for a vendor, when end of campaign you sell, they're just like, but when you buy for a client as a buyer, I remember myself, like I was never a selling agent, so I can't compare it, but I can explain around, you're right, like the feeling of when you buy for a client, it doesn't go away. Yeah. You typically, if there's a good relationship, the relationship extends. I think it's one of the best parts of the role.
It's such and I always think of it too, like you actually made that buyer's purchasing process somewhat enjoyable as well, whereas on the selling side it's usually always stressful. You know, it's a rarity that there's always some stress around getting the house ready, open homes, everything like that. On the buying side, if you do your job properly and you get them a great result, you've just, you've changed their lives for the better, and you've got them exactly what they want, and they're always super appreciative. Yeah.
Are you finding anything outside of like out of area people coming in? Obviously that they need all the help they can get. They probably tick every box as to why they need like a representation of yourself.
For sure.
But have you noticed any trends around locals around like why they would is it low stock? Is it time? Is it like?
So I guess why they'd use a buyer's agent, it's about, I think, like I said, going back to people looking for a competitive edge, I think people really want to leverage the relationships I've got, because even though there's stuff available, but we're starting to trend towards a more Sydney market where, stuff's transacting off market. And I think people, I sell time when it comes down to it. A lot of people don't have the time to come down, an hour and a half down the coast every Saturday to find out that the property's already been sold, or that's way above their budget. So I think I just cut down that looking time probably in half, and just give them a competitive edge in securing the property when they do find the right one.
Yeah, I like what you said. You sell time. You're right. Like as buyers agents, right? We're trading time.
Correct,
like
yeah.
you keep those 10 hours, 12 hours, 20 hours a month, and I'll take on that workload.
Yep.
And I'll give you that back. And so, yeah, it's that trade. It's a very interesting way to look at it.
And in a rising market, every week you are looking, it's potentially going to cost you more anyway. So I think it's a good investment if you get the right one.
Did you find starting a business was like it was going to whatever way it's flowed for you? Did you feel like it was going to, not in terms of sign-ups, but I mean, starting a business can be daunting. I think so many entrepreneurs don't become entrepreneurs because they initially just think it's going to be too complex. Like, what's been your experience starting a business?
Mate, I've learned a lot. Like, I've only ever been an employee, and like, thank God we had the course, thank God we had you. I wouldn't say, it definitely wasn't easy, but I think it's all worth it too. So any hurdle that comes up against me or anything, I've just been like, you know what, this is just part of the process. And I think now that I know it, I've got skills for life, which is just going to be super handy.
Yeah, I mean, my experience when I started a business was, when I started my first one, Co and Handler, was like you go through this massive transformation, not just professionally, but personally.
Yeah.
I feel like you challenge yourself differently, you see things differently, you get out of your comfort zone more. Like so many things you start to change. Have you experienced that already?
Just the responsibility changed me, because I was like, wow, like if I don't make this happen, no one else will. There's no one to catch you, and all of that responsibility, I think, just turns you into a different person just naturally, and I love it. Like I just feel like I've taken charge, and especially with everything that's happened this year, you almost want to be in charge of your own fate, and that's what I love about it. I think it's just great.
Yeah, you're right. Like it's 100% responsibility, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And if it doesn't work, we're the only one to kind of.
You've got no one else to blame. Yeah.
What about next year for you? I mean, you're very busy. We had a chat earlier. Like, have you thought about hiring someone?
That's the plan. Yeah, definitely. I want to figure out how to split myself in half. Essentially, that's my goal. Get a little bit of time back and do more and scale. And next year, I want to own social media. That's something that I've been lacking in just because of the time factor, like you said. But that's one of my big goals next year, is to, industry recognition, get some market share in my area in terms of buyers agents, and just be well known. And yeah, that's my goal.
Well, man, congrats, you're crushing it. I always thought you were going to crush. I remember when we spoke, and anyway, it's played out the right way for you. Like, well done on all your success. I think it's phenomenal. Where can people find you?
Mate, people can find me just at our website, so it's corbettpropertybuyers.com.au, or just on my Instagram @Jack Corbett. That's probably the easiest.
Awesome, dude. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Check out Jack Corbett. His details are on the screen, especially if you or anyone that you know could be looking to move down south, right? Because there's a massive shift, as you would know, of people leaving city or different environments to go coastal. So Jack's in Wollongong, serious expert there. He's crushing it there. So if you know of anyone, check him out, reach out. Even if you have questions, right? Even if you're thinking about, well, what would life look like if you were to leave the city and move down south, pick up the phone and give him a call. See you next week.